Welcome back to another episode of Uncontested Investing. I'm your host, Nate Zielinski, and thank you so much for joining us today. Today, across the table, I have Hameto Benkreira. And Hameto, we're going to pull back the lens a little bit and let the audience know we scheduled this interview very early this morning, but I think just on our conversation before we hit record, this is going to be a really good episode. I'm so happy to have you if you want to introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm Hameto Benkreira. I work at PadSplit. I'm on the growth team there. And I sit between the business and tech teams, and my job is to build software that grows our business, that grows us on the supply and demand side of our marketplace. And I'm excited to talk and see what we can figure out today.
One of the first things I want to touch on is some very cool life experience that you had. You were a Fulbright grantee. Can you explain that to our audience and kind of go through that experience? Because it's very unique and pretty cool. I'm a little jealous, to be honest.
Yeah. Way back in my resume. So right after I graduated college, I was in New England and Boston, not far from where you grew up. And I wanted to go as far away and do something completely different from being in school. So I applied for this Fulbright program. I got in, and so I went to Indonesia first for 1 year, and I extended for a second year. And I was an English teacher in sort of like a rural area in Indonesia, and that was an amazing experience. And lots of learning on the fly and figuring things out and lots of culture shock. And I loved it. I stayed another year, made amazing friends, and then moved back to the States after a few years.
I love that because there's an element of getting out of your comfort zone there. And I think for successful real estate investors, that's a huge first step, right? Taking that leap of faith, trying something new. Maybe they're leaving a 9-to-5 job to pursue real estate full time. So having that experience is extremely vital. For you, subconsciously going to another part of the world, was there anything there that kind of sparked like an interest in real estate for you, or professionally? Was there anything that you can look back on and kind of trace to those days or those years spent in Indonesia?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my big takeaways from that experience were like learning through immersion. So learning by doing, learning by getting out of your comfort zone. And I think from that, I sort of like developed a willingness to take calculated risks, a willingness to learn by doing. And I don't think it's by accident that immediately after that experience, I started working in startups, and that eventually more consumer startups, marketplace startups, and that led me to PadSplit eventually in real estate.
What has that experience done for you, from a confidence perspective, from a personality perspective? Startups are not for the faint of heart. It's a very entrepreneurial way to go about a business. How has that experience translated? I feel like once you go through the development of a startup company, I feel like everything might be a little bit easier. I don't know if I'm assuming too much there, but can you kind of connect those dots of a startup to where you are now, what that experience did for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it depends on the stage of the startup. And so I've been at a few startups, some slightly more mature, and I also started my own thing, and that was a thrill of an experience, harrowing. The hardest I've ever worked. Maybe in 2 years, I probably took 5 days off total. Would go to sleep thinking about problems and would wake up with the answer. It was like sort of this magical period of my life. And I think, I'll speak to starting a startup when, my early 20s, immediately after coming back from the Fulbright program. That was really the hardest I've ever worked probably in my life, the most intense work period I've ever had, but it was also the most rewarding. I remember it with such a great fondness because I was learning every day. I was facing new challenges, new problems every day, and had no choice but to say, let's figure this out, because the buck stopped with me.
Yep.
I had people working with me, but it was still like I was a founder CEO, so it was up to me to figure these things out. And I think that there's a parallel there, like whether it's a startup and you're the founder, or you're an entrepreneur in a more traditional business that's offline, or you're a real estate investor. There are these parallels where you need to you need to identify the problems. You need to solve them. You need to be willing to take risks. You need to figure it out. Like, it's up to you at the end of the day, or there won't be any results.
For me personally, when I got into the real estate industry, I had zero experience. I took a business development job at RCN Capital, and over the course of 3 to 4 years, I've kind of learned by osmosis, learned by doing. Mm-hmm. So for you, was there any reservations about jumping into a real estate-centric company? Have you learned a lot since you got there? Are you doing learning on your own? What's kind of setting you up for success in your current role and, just learning the real estate side of things?
And I mean, that's a really great question, and it's really poignant for me because I'm in this journey where I went to PadSplit, having worked in startups and working in tech for at least like 8 years or something like that, 7, 8, 9 years, and so I had a lot of confidence and a lot of competence in the tech world, and I knew I could build and develop anything that was a consumer-oriented software or tech product. PadSplit's different because it's really real estate first, tech sort of as the foundation, not really second, but as the foundation. And so you need both. And the real estate world is kind of really different from the tech world. And so I entered PadSplit with a lot of confidence and competence around tech. And I knew almost nothing about real estate. My parents didn't own a home until I was an adult. I don't own any property yet. I'm interested in working on my first investment deal now with the help of some mentors. And learning at PadSplit. And I think that PadSplit's been this amazing experience because it has accelerated my journey into thinking about investing in real estate. I think prior to PadSplit, I only thought of real estate as you buying your primary residence.
Yeah.
And having lived in DC, then I was living in New York for 5 years. It was sort of like, that was a very distant dream too. That was something, when I start a family and have kids, I'll buy a home. At New York, it's so tough to buy a primary residence there. And so, now that I'm at PadSplit, I'm around real estate investors every day. I'm working alongside them. I'm talking to them over email, over Slack, and it has dramatically accelerated this sort of like distant thing in the future around like me buying a house. And now it's like, okay, Hameto, like when are we doing this? Mm-hmm. And I have people sending me deals. I have mentors at the company who are coaching me and giving me advice. And so, it's definitely accelerated like what I know about real estate, and it has pushed me into action.
We're going to talk about mentors in a second, but as a podcast host, some answers are just music to your ears, right? That was the perfect answer, mainly because people who get involved in real estate investing, they come from a different industry. They come from a different background. They're not steeped in the ins and outs of real estate investing, right? But as you mentioned, you have that tech background. You have those set of skills. Competence is a great word for it, right? And confidence. So for people that are out there that are kind of on the fence, should I do it, should I not? You can use your current professional standing as a jumping off point to invest in real estate, right? You can use the skills that you've cultivated, whether you're aware of them or not, and they actually do translate into the real estate industry in some capacity. And as you and I are examples of, then you can just learn on the fly and kind of pick it up as you go, which is sometimes the best way to learn things.
100%.
So for mentors, again, a thing that real estate investors should look into, they should always have somebody that they can go to for advice, somebody that they can help navigate their first few deals. A mentor is an extremely important part of a real estate investor's career. Who has been that for you? Is there a couple that are out there?
Yeah, there's a couple. And I think I'm really lucky because at PadSplit, I'm working alongside, like many of the people I work with at PadSplit are real estate investors, and they may have been real estate investors before they joined, or they may have become one after they joined PadSplit. Like me, that's the journey that I'm on right now. And so, I can think of a few because I'm really lucky to be surrounded by them. But like, my colleague Quentin, my colleague Nick, Oriana and Ray, they're all real estate investors who have done traditional investing, but are also investing in PadSplits. And so I'm doing the work and being at PadSplit and helping to scale the business. I've seen the impacts on both the member/renter side and the host/investor side. And after you see it so much, you kind of get drawn into it. And then with the support of my mentors at the company, I've seen them acquire their first PadSplit and then their second, and some of them are a few of them are on their fifth or sixth or seventh, and they're doing really amazing. And so a lot of learning by osmosis. And then also when I see a potential deal, first thing I do is I look at it, then I send it to them. I kind of do it both at the same time. I start looking at numbers. If it passes a few gut checks, send it to my mentors, get their feedback on the market, because I'm also looking at opportunities outside of my home market. And so there's an additional leap of faith there, and there's an additional set of challenges, but overcomable challenges. And so I would say, I guess my advice to others, if you're trying to get into real estate, just go find someone who you can relate to, who you're friendly with, who does real estate. And they don't need to be your friend today. They don't need to be your friend now. They don't need to be your colleague. Go to your local RIA, go to a local meetup, plug in. There's tons of real estate events in every market. and just go, show up a few times, and you'll find someone who's willing to give you advice. And that first person, they may or may not, they may become your mentor, or they may just be like, an associate or acquaintance or a friend. And as you get more exposure, as you go to more of these events, as you look at deals, as you offer other people to help them out, you'll find someone who can be your guide or coach or mentor.
So far, so good for an interview that was scheduled at 8 a.m. this morning. Hameto has a unique story. The answers have been on point so far. Hameto, thank you so much. We're going to take our first break. The sponsors are going to step in here. We're going to come back and do the Money Making Minute. Stay tuned. REI Inc. is the premier monthly publication for real estate investors. Dive into a wealth of expert insights and knowledge from industry leaders and gain valuable regional market insights, ensuring you always have the best information right at your fingertips. Visit REIinc.com to elevate your real estate investment game today. We're back with this week's episode of Uncontested Investing. I'm joined by Hameto Benkreira from PadSplit. And Hameto, we're going to put you on the spot here. We got the Money Making Minute, our first segment of the episode. So the Money Making Minute is an investment strategy, app, skill, a habit, a part of your routine. What can our listeners take that they can implement tomorrow to help them achieve success? Or maybe it's a long-term goal, a long-term success strategy. Take it away. Let's hear it. The Money Making Minute.
I come from the tech world, which we've talked about a lot. I'm sure you're tired of hearing about this because many of y'all are real estate investors. So let's talk about one learning from the tech world that is actually relevant to real estate investing and entrepreneurship in general. So in the tech world, one practice that we try to put in place very often is called a minimum viable product, or lean validation. Let me explain this. So building an app or building a website for something is something that can take 3, 6, 9 months. It's really expensive. You're working with engineers. It's kind of like building a house. But there's always the risk that when you build the app or website, you're not really building the right solution to the problem that the market needs. You wouldn't build a house without a full, proper plan, without some market research in advance. And so one practice we try to do is figure out what's instead of building the 9-month plan, what's the thing you can do in 9 minutes? Not even 9 days. What is the thing you can do now to get feedback, to better understand the problem and the opportunity, so that you don't get stuck 3 months from now or 4 months from now and realize you've been doing the wrong thing? So I'll give you an example. So PadSplit is in the room rental market. This is new for a lot of real estate investors. We get hit with a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. Well, what about this? What about that? And so here's something you could do if you're in a market where you're curious about doing room rentals with or without PadSplit. Here's what I'd suggest doing. Instead of going down the long journey of setting up your own room rental home and trying to figure it out down the road, go on to Craigslist, check out the room rental listings that are there right now, or go on to Facebook, find a Facebook group that has room rental listings there, read all the comments, look at the listing, look at the photos, look at the price, sort by price on Craigslist and find the median and average price and use that to guide your underwriting, because there's going to be outliers on both sides. So look at the median. And I actually do recommend median over average. And so something else you could do, take it a step further, because that's just generally market research at a high level right there. Let's go further. Post a listing with a photo of a room in your home and post it on Craigslist, put a description, and see what responses you get. See what responses you get when you post it at the median price. For every response you get, you might get 10, 20, 5 responses. Call every single one of them. Interview them, ask them about their lives, ask them about where else they've lived before they inquired about this room rental. Understand who they are, ask them what problems they've faced, ask them if they've done room rentals before. And I promise if you do those things, you will be almost an expert, an emerging expert in the room rental market, and you'll understand some of the challenges and opportunities that exist there, because it's very different from single family investing. It's very different from Airbnb. It's different from midterm and other types of investing. So that's zooming back out. That's a practice that we try to put into place at PadSplit as well, where we try to figure things out in advance instead of going on this long journey and taking the long road. We want to take the express route, the express lane to the answer, and then we work backwards from there.
Hameto, that was some great insight. I think real estate investors can really benefit from that answer. Deconstructing a problem, right? Kind of treating a deal as like an engine, figuring out all the parts that are involved in it, and then putting it back together so you know that it makes sense. Don't jump into something just because real estate investing is the new trend. Don't do it before you've done all your research. There's a lot of steps that can just actually guarantee you success rather than just you taking a chance at potentially having success. I think there's a big difference right there, and your answer broke that down perfectly. The next thing I want to touch on would be networking, making connections in the industry, kind of finding those mentors, as you mentioned. You even threw out a few examples. Home Investors has brought us together here in Dallas. That's the reason why I flew down. It's the reason why you're here as well. How important do you think a networking component is for a real estate investor?
I mean, real estate is really math, money, and people. And you can be a lone real estate investor. You're probably not going to go too far. You'll have some success if you're really smart, if you underwrite well. Like, you'll have some success, but so much of the magic happens when you connect with people. And you can do some of that online, but there's a different kind of magic that happens in person. You're the level of trust that kicks in is so much higher and so much faster. Everyone in the real estate world who invests has experienced this. You'll get more deals sent your way. You'll have more connections for if you need private money. You'll get intros to good vendors, to GCs, et cetera. And so, I mean, I can't emphasize it enough. Like I think you and I have been to some of the same events. We're going to more of these conferences, and the value that you get out of, a flight, a night or two at a hotel, and, a conference ticket, if there's a ticket, like the value you get out of that will pay off if you're active, if you shake some hands, you meet some people, you hang out at the event. And so I can't emphasize it enough. Even just speaking personally, like stepping away again from real estate, like all of my jobs that I've ever gotten have been through some form of networking, where a job might not even be posted, but you put the word out, you tell people who you are, you tell people you're interested in, and you get things sent your way. And I imagine the same is true in the real estate world.
Yeah. There's a delicate balance there, right? Because you obviously want to get that experience, you want to find properties, you want to set yourself up for that financial freedom. But there is a wealth of knowledge in this industry, and you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not trying to tap into that, whether that's locally in your state. We've probably both traveled to Vegas at this point. There's a lot of real estate conventions that happen in Vegas. So maybe if you save up, you want to take that trip out to Vegas. I mean, there's just the world is your oyster, essentially, when you're at a real estate convention.
Yeah.
You can turn to your left and have some FaceTime with a CEO. You can turn to your right and meet another investor, and that you guys might be working on your next deal together. Yeah. So there's so much potential out there. And as you said, you can't really stress it enough how important that component of real estate investing is.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing about this?
For sure.
I think there's this sort of this bias that often happens in the real estate world where people stay in their zone of competence, and it's often investing in their local market. This is the trap that I fell into that I'm breaking out of, which was I lived in DC, I lived in New York. I was always looking to invest in those markets, really expensive, both of them. Now I'm breaking out of that. I'm traveling more. I'm meeting investors in other markets. I know many investors in Atlanta now, in North Florida, Central Florida, and Texas. And so when you get out the door, when you go and meet other people, whether locally or in other markets, you're going to get exposed to other investment markets where you could see really attractive deals and also potentially other investment strategies. So I think that you, again, like you said, you're doing yourself a disservice if you stay home and you're only co-investing with people that you know. I think that there's a lot of value in meeting people and getting in at the door, like you said.
And there's so much value, and social media is one of those things that has made that easier than ever, right? You can be talking to somebody in Central Ohio, trying to, are we okay with this duplex? Should we move on this, right? You talk to somebody in the northwest corner of Washington. So there's so many opportunities out there. It would be a shame to just kind of limit yourself to your own backyard. Yes, that's a good training area, practice ground, but as you mentioned, sometimes those are near impossible. I want to be a real estate investor in New York City. Get in line, right? There's so many people that already have the experience, already have the money, that are going to just swallow up these properties, that investing in real estate in New York City as your first time is going to be daunting. And I think most people would quit rather than see that through and try to push through those hard months, those hard years of getting their footing. So many opportunities out there. A perfect segue into the next question. Over the last few years, the market has changed drastically. There's been a rise in interest rates. There's been inflation. There's been coverage from every national network about the state of the real estate industry. For you at PadSplit, you guys have a specific niche and it actually speaks to being adaptable and finding alternative solutions. So can you kind of touch on what really happens at PadSplit, how much of an opportunity this could be for people that haven't heard of you guys yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, let's say the obvious, like you've just said, interest rates super high relative to the past decade. Supply is super tight. No one is selling because interest rates were really low. It's almost zero a few years ago. People have locked in like 2.5% mortgages. They don't want to sell. And you might be in a market where your appreciation is thrown off. Depending on your market, you might see values still going up or going down. And so it's a very challenging market, especially compared with the last like 5, 7, 8 years. And so cash flowing a property through traditional investing is really tough right now. Particularly if it's a new property that you acquired if you're looking to acquire or that you've acquired in the past like year or so. And so people are looking for alternatives. People are looking for a different strategy. And some people who have, like Airbnb properties where you don't have durability in your cash flow. Your cash flows may have been amazing last season, but if there's less vacation travel in your market, or if there's more competition, your cash flows might be gone, even though they were amazing last year. And so people are looking for alternatives. You have midterm rentals. I think of Jesse Vasquez talks a lot about corporate relocation or insurance relocation or traveling nurses. People I've heard more and more talk about like storage or RV parks or mobile homes. PadSplit falls into those buckets as well. What PadSplit does is we're a room rental marketplace, the country's largest room rental marketplace. And it's very similar to Airbnb. We're modeled off of Airbnb, but instead of, coming to this website to find a home on a beach or in the mountains, these are room rentals for, essential workers, your retail store manager, your home care nurse, your substitute teacher, your like new firefighter, people who need jobs in your community, or people who have jobs in your community who need homes, and maybe they can't afford or can't qualify because of credit reasons or for a traditional rental. So we're here in Dallas right now, and in Dallas, I looked it up recently. I think the median listed one bedroom or studio right now is listed about $1,300 on one of the sites I looked at. To qualify for that through traditional qualification, you need to make $4,000 every month. Typically, like a landlord will require 3x, and not everyone makes that. There's a large percentage of the city and metro population that won't qualify, and then there's also people who don't want to spend that much. They want to save because they're trying to buy a home, or they have another like plan in mind or other priorities. And so we see a lot of people coming to room rentals. Pew Research says that 1 in 3 adults in this country are in a shared housing and household, which means there's at least one adult who is not not married to the breadwinner, is not related to them. They might be a distant relative, or they might be a tenant. And so room rentals are growing on the demand side a ton. It's been there. And then on the investor side, we're seeing a lot of interest because of all the reasons we just talked about. This is a long-winded way of saying, it's really hard to cash flow through traditional investing right now. Airbnb investing is really tough unless you had a really great entry price and you're serving the high end of the market and you have a really competitive, differentiated offering. And, if you're not there, then it's really hard to cash flow. And that's why people are coming to PadSplit.
Awesome. Good answers. Keep on rolling. Hameto, thank you so much for the insight. We're going to take another quick break. We're going to hit them with the deal breaker, deal maker. We'll wrap this episode up. It's been great so far. Stay tuned, everybody. Whether you're pursuing long-term or short-term ventures, RCN Capital's wide range of loan programs will help you reach your financial goals with ease and flexibility. We have loan programs for fix and flips, long-term rentals, new construction, and multifamily properties. To learn more about our loan programs or apply, click on the link in our bio or email info@rcncapital.com. And we're back with Hameto Benkreira from PadSplit. It's been a great interview so far. We're going to do the deal breaker, deal maker next. Excuse me. We're going to do the deal breaker, deal maker next, Hameto. So what this is going to be is a tip or maybe something that you can pinpoint in deal flow, right? What causes a deal to break down? What causes a deal to cross the finish line? Is there a successful business practice wrapped up into all of that you can kind of pinpoint? So the floor is yours. Let's hear it for the deal breaker, deal maker.
So we talked a little bit about the importance of networking, breaking down this sort of myth or bad habit of being a lone wolf real estate investor. And so let's take networking a step farther. When you're doing an alternative or a new investment strategy, like we've talked about, whether it's midterm rentals, room rentals, or something else, make sure you are working with or working under the guidance of someone who's executed that strategy before, because there's going to be pitfalls, there's going to be unknowns that you haven't experienced before. And some of them are small hurdles that you can get tripped up on that you can recover from, no problem. Maybe you miss a month of cash flow, or maybe there's just a slightly higher utility bill than you're used to. That's fine. Like, you won't remember that a year from now or 2 years from now. Some of them could really destroy your business. A home and an investment, real estate investment, is a business. And so some of these are really hard to recover from. I think Jeff Bezos uses a phrase like one-way versus two-way doors. And two-way doors, you can go in and out. A one-way door, you can only go through once. And if you mess up, then that's it. You're stuck with it. And so, thinking about room rentals and PadSplit, just because this is where I work, this is something that's always top of mind for me, and something we've seen a lot is that, let's say, you get a good acquisition, you've underwritten it well, you've done your homework, you've done a light reno to set up the property and maximize livable square footage. This is going to be, it looks great on paper. You list it, you're working with the PadSplit team, it's activated, you're starting to get move-ins. Then there's a different journey that happens. There's sort of the acquisition and getting listed and activated journey. Then there's a different journey that happens. And it's not really like Airbnb. There's a little bit of a hospitality play, but very different, because it's room rentals and not luxury, not vacation. But you want to have, we highly recommend working with an experienced property manager who's done co-living before, because the issues are different. It's not like having crisp linens like in a luxury Airbnb. It's actually like, hey, Johnny ate my pizza, or like this person's being loud at night. And those are very different. Those are not technical or not hardware things you can fix, like changing a light bulb or changing a thermostat and fixing a utility problem or changing piping. And so there's a different layer of like human to human and tenant to tenant, like operational challenges and risks. And PadSplit has been in this game for 6-7 years, and we've seen it all, and we've built the operational and product and technical and policy and legal apparatus to solve these things. And so reach out to us. We're happy to give guidance and advice, whether you work with us or not. Otherwise, I'd say work with a property manager who's done co-living, done room rentals before, because the issues are not quite what you might think they are. And I think a lot of the times people think about students, I lived in a dorm, I know about, or I graduated from college and I shared a house with people. That is not the market for room rentals. That's one slice of it. We see seniors in room rentals. We see working professionals in room rentals, and we see all sorts of a diverse population. And so the issues are broader than maybe your personal experience. And ultimately, if you're a real estate investor, you don't want a part-time job being a PM dealing with these kinds of issues. Hire a PM, pay the 6%, and work with someone who has experience in this.
Hameto, you hinted at it earlier as well. You are starting to think about investing in real estate yourself. You're trying to do the initial due diligence. You're working at a company that is focused on real estate investing. So how has that journey been for you so far? I'm sure there's a bunch of listeners right now doing exactly what you're doing, trying to decide if real estate investing is right for them. So how's the journey been for you?
Yeah, I think just saying it plainly, I've seen so many people set up PadSplits and make a killing. They're having social impact by providing more affordable units for people. And also they're making a killing on their bottom line. And they're just like 2xing, 3xing single family returns. And I've seen it so much now, it's kind of like hit me in the face a million times that now I got to do it. Now I want to go for it. And so I went from knowing very little, zero about real estate investing to knowing some. And now I need to go through the rest of the journey by learning by doing. And so I'm starting to look at deals primarily in the Atlanta market where PadSplit has the longest tenure, where we have a really strong ecosystem. Looking at Florida, Texas a little bit, but we'll probably start Atlanta, and then maybe some stuff closer to home in the Mid-Atlantic, Baltimore, DC, Richmond. And so, starting to look at deals, working with my mentors, getting their perspective, finding... talking with great lenders, hint, RCN is cool. And so, that's where I am now. And let's circle back up in like 8 weeks and we'll give you a good update.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. one of the things I also like to talk about for people that in our audience that are real estate investors, this industry can be very consuming, time consuming. It can take up your personal life 24/7, 365. You're thinking about deals. You're thinking about your portfolio. You're thinking about setting up your family for success. But sometimes that takes you away from your family. So I always like talking to people about their passion projects, what they do when they're not tapped into real estate, that they think is an outlet for them, that recharges their batteries and makes them a better real estate professional. Do you have something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now it's sort of like the sphere is like family, work, and then real estate investing is a new thing for me. And then outside of that, that's just like completely different from that is I've just started playing tennis recently, and
Nice.
this is like I am addicted. It's there's this learning curve where you start to see progress. And it's just like every time I play, I'm getting a little bit better and I see it. And sometimes it's super frustrating, super challenging, but it's a thrill. I love watching it now. I can't stop watching it. It's on my social media. I'm following all these coaches. It's kind of like real estate. There's this economy and world of coaching. There's this like long, like decade-long practice to really get to your end goal around it. And so that's like I'm hooked on that right now. I'm really excited for the U.S. Open coming up, and just been all in on tennis as well.
I'm addicted to sports just a little bit. Do you have a favorite tennis player? Because I have to kind of diverge and ask you about this really quick. Do you have a tennis player that you're modeling your game after? I know you're pretty new, but
so there's.
What do you like watching?
I think men's and women's tennis is both really interesting right now, and there's like 3 or 4 top players on both sides that are amazing. And so I have a few people that I like, but I just love any good match, any good duel on the court. I love to watch. So.
Nice. That's good. Yeah, the French Open right now is coming down to it. The
100%.
The finals are going to be this coming weekend. So
yeah, you know your stuff.
I'll be tuned in. Oh yeah. We could have a whole new podcast about Hameto's tennis journey and how much I love sports. All right. So lastly, as we circle back to PadSplit for you, you're a growth specialist there. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you what's next for you guys. What are some solutions that you're trying to come up with? Any goals that you have personally that you're working on that can really make a difference at PadSplit? What does the next 6 months taking us into 2025 look like for you?
Yeah, next 6 months. Yeah. We just launched in the past like 2 quarters. We just launched or are launching 5 or 6 new major metros. That brings us to about 19 total. And so for us, it's really about making sure we're really successful in those markets, because anytime we're inviting new real estate investors or existing investors in our market to expand to a new market, we want to make sure they're successful. And so that's like priority number 1 for us. Priority number 2 is working towards hopefully a national launch. We got to nail these top 20 markets, but we're getting so many inquiries from cities where we don't operate. We're not yet in California. We're not yet in New York. We're not in Chicago. We're not in Ohio. We're not in a number of markets. And so we're getting more and more of these inquiries, and we've been saying no because we want to set people up for success, and we're trying to get ourselves to a point where we can say yes to all of these. And so we're excited to work towards a national launch in the future. Probably not in the next 6 months. 6 months is nail these new markets we just launched and start thinking about that.
That's awesome. Well, I'm rooting for you. Good luck on your journey for you personally in PadSplit.
Thanks.
I've got to say, the freshest shoes that have ever graced the Uncontested Investing studio. I noticed the Jordans right when you walked in. Hameto, it was an absolute pleasure today. For me personally, not knowing what to expect when I woke up this morning to absolutely nailing this interview. It's going to be one of my favorites. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to connecting with you down the future.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too.
For our Uncontested Investing listeners, I hope you guys got a lot out of this episode. Hameto's journey has been incredible so far. He's a very interesting guy, and he's doing a lot of great work over at PadSplit. So I hope you tuned in, learned something new today. We'll see you all in the next one. This is Nate Zielinski signing off for Uncontested Investing.
Thank you for listening to Uncontested Investing. Questions about today's episode or the podcast? Email podcast@rcncapital.com and make sure to follow REI Inc. magazine on LinkedIn and Facebook, and RCN Capital on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you all next time.